High Can You Fly? This was requested by Terry Witzu, and the tuning for this on the, of course, it's on both Craters of the Sack and Shinola. I guess I'm basing this off the Shinola version. I believe the Shinola version has some, I think for the most part, the guitar parts are more or less the same. It's just, they kind of just extended the song by looping it, part of it and stuff. As far as I'm aware, there's not much going on specifically in the Craters of the Sack version that's not necessarily in the Shinola version, so it's the same song either ways, right? So when they play this, it's played in the key of G, so I can only assume that they recorded it played in the key of G, right? Because on the album, it's, and, you know, both versions, but I'll just say the Shinola version, the recorded version, it's an F sharp, right? So it's down half a step, but they play it in G major. So I'll go over just the chords first. So, all these effects. So the chords are just, during the riff, the chords are G, and you can play bar chords or whatever. They seem to sort of do mostly open chords when they do it live, so, but either way. So the chords over the riff are G, D, C. I think I see them doing power chords live, but C, E major. Right? So that's it. Used to be doing bar chords there. So those are the chords. And then there's just the verse, right? So on the album, it seems to be a bit different. When they do it live, they seem to just be playing E major here. On the recording, it feels like they're definitely doing an E7, right? And I hear this E note in there, so I don't think they're doing they have that open D string. I don't think that's what they're doing, because I definitely hear that E note in there, that octave E note. So I think they could be doing this way, this 7 shape up here. And you could have the low E in there as well. Or you could do it down here, where it's just your normal E major shape where you throw the 7th in there on the 3rd fret of the B string. I'm not sure which I'd say is more accurate to the album. I just prefer playing this shape in general than doing this with extending my pinky out. Not that it's hard necessarily, but it's, you know... Anyway, you're down here anyway, though, so in the open position. So they kind of pedal over that for a while. And then A major, and then B major. You could do power chords there, or you can have the 3rd in there, right? So... and then back. Now, on the... sometimes when they do this live, it's a bit different than the... When they do it live, they kind of do 2 verses, right? On the Shinola version, they change up the chord progression only in the last time around, the end of the second verse. During the first verse, they just sort of end it by... going back into the riff, right? But there's a, you know, sort of more segue into that. The other part is they go A, B flat down just half step, then C, right? So A, so that's how they go into that. You can do it both times if you want. I would say doing it that way both times is fine. But anyway, that's just generally how they do it live. But if you want more, be more exact to the Shinola version, whatever. So we'll get into the riff, and then we'll get into the leads. So, well, the riff is the lead, right? So there's definitely like an octaves kind of thing going on. I get. I'll just teach it in both positions, but I'll do the higher one because that's what you see Gene doing this riff live. You see him doing it in the higher octave position. He sort of does it, from what I've seen, he plays that note on the B string there, but we'll just be getting into the... I'll be teaching this position. It's the same riff, same notes and everything. So, G note, 12th fret of the G. Right? And I like to hold that, hit the octave up on the 15, the high E. sustain that so that it gives that note a little bit more power than just going, you know, you can do that, but I think it just sounds a bit cooler just to give it a bit more. I've got my my volume turned down so it can be easier to teach, but in terms of the tone, you can have, I would definitely do wah, but you also phaser or whatever, and lots of delay, of course, a lot of distortion. So that, and then that D note on the 15 of the B, a bit of vibrato. From what I've seen, Gene kind of does that sort of more subtle vibrato when he plays. He doesn't put as much vibrato as, say, a guy like Diener would, you know. That's what I would typically do with my temptation as a player, right? But, you know, small amount of vibrato. And then slide down. Just a little subtle slide down on that B string 15. And then pluck that 12, 13. Pluck 12, and then 13 of the G. Again, for what I remember, just a small amount of vibrato, not a lot. It's pretty subtle. And then up to that note, it's the same. You hold that a bit longer. You could do a unison bend here, which is what I always do. Again, just sounds a bit more powerful. So unison bend, 12 on the high E, 15 up a whole step on the B. Like that. And especially if you the second time around you do it in the riff, when it loops, you can add a lot more vibrato there and make it sound more chaotic. Classic move, right? You can also just do one note, just bend it up there. And that's the riff, right? So now the octave below, I'm not sure if he's playing this or if it's just like a pedal effect or what on the recording, but if you just wanted to, I don't know, if you had like an extra guitar player or whatever in your band, or maybe you have an octave up effect, basically just, it's the exact same thing but an octave lower. You can just play here on the A, D, and G strings, right? I'm not going to necessarily call out all the frets this time because I already went over what the pattern of the riff is, but you know. Right, so this lower octave. And of course, you also do a unison bend there on your G and B. And speaking of unison bends, before we get into the sort of main solo part, I'll just go over that. Again, I'm not going to put effects on it right now, but imagine it with lots of effects. There's a few unison bends. He does this sort of the last go-around, like the last time they're sort of winding down the song. You call it the chorus, but it's really just the riff, right? So there's the note is D, so he does it there. So just imagine the note on the B string, right? So he does D. And then he goes up here to the A, that note. So, and I think he is doing a lot more vibrato here. And again, this is sort of more of a background thing to add, you know, noise and texture, right? Down a whole step to the G. And then up here to the B. 12 fret there. And I think he does that again. And he throws in another one where he goes way up there, and basically the octave of this part down here. He goes up. He might even be, it might not even be a necessarily unison, but he definitely bends up there on the G note, G string, on the C note, I should say, 17. He bends down and a little bit and bends up there. It's kind of quick, right? And again, you might, whether or not you want to throw that in there. when you're bending up and back down. So that's it, just those unison bends. And then if you want, so those are those. Now the solo, and it's a really cool entrance. I believe it's actually at the top of the Creators of the Sack version, but the solo part, as far as I'm aware, it's the same recording and everything. I imagine it has to be, but something like that. So I'm going to start up here. Hitting those two there, a classic move. Whole step bend on your 14 of your G while holding the D note on the 15 of the B. Bring it back down and hit those again. Right, and then really quick little. I would say after you pluck that, I don't necessarily pluck the B string again, but pluck the G string as you hammer it on real quick from the 12 to the 14. Right. Just like that. Because you don't need that D note in there, but it's nice, you know, for added sort of tension and excitement, right? Bend up there, bend down, and wind up there, and then 12 to 14 on both the A string and the D string. Probably just hammer on both of those. And then you're going to do a little step and a half bend on the D string there, 14th fret. I like to pluck it there, but you could also, if you want, just not pluck it. And pluck it again when it comes back down, but just for added volume and even. So this next bit's kind of weird. Well, I hear kind of, he sort of slurs this note, like on the 12, the D. And you definitely hear that note, like the 12 of the A, that high A note. And then he grabs this, so. Right, so. I would rake into that, frap, whatever. So pluck and bend up. Then pluck again as you bend up. Do it in one more time. Then pluck and bend back down with some vibrato afterwards. This next bit's weird. This is my approximation of what he does. I just hear he hammers on from something. I don't know if it's this note necessarily, but I can hear, you can hear that note on the 15 of the high E. And then you don't hear this, you hear a D note, but not on the 15. You hear it's this octave. It's that lower octave D note. Maybe it's my ears are playing tricks on me. It's actually that. So I would say a really quick hammer on from 12 to 15 on the high E. Right? I think it sounds kind of cool. Right? Full step bend up there on the 17 of the high E. That lick there, right? Hammer on there. And back down there on the B. And then right? So playing with that third there, because we're doing this E minor thing, throwing the major third in there, going to the fourth. I don't know if he plucks twice there, like that, or if he hammers on and pulls off all of them. Right, but, you know, 16 to 17 there, twice. And then back down to 15. And back down there. Then I like to slide down here to the 12th of the B. That's how I like to do that descent. Because I just think that articulation of that sliding down there sounds really cool. So you also go, you know, or you could also go, you know, and that I don't like doing that because what he does at the end is he goes, sorry. You hear that A note in there, but that's just, you know. Or you could do this on the G string, but 12 of B, 10 of B, and then G note on either, you know, your G string, your B string down here, or your G string 12. And then E. And then as the solo kind of trails off and it, you know, gets faded down, he starts to add in some vibrato on the E note, and then he sort of hits that A note, and it just sort of more wild vibrato, and then it gets, you know, brought down in volume, right? So it's something like that. So if you add effects and whatnot. It's something like that. It's whatever. It's, you know, a noisy ending, right? So that's pretty much the song, the solo, and everything. I hope you had fun learning this one, and I'll talk to you next time.